and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Dinesh D'Souza's new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, based on the #1 international bestseller by Jonathan Cahn. The Dragon's Prophecy offers a new understanding on Israel, radical Islam, anti-Semitism, and biblical prophecy. Could it be that the fate of the world, of all of humanity itself, is tied to what we're seeing right now in the Middle East? In theaters 2 nights only, October 6th and October 8th, streaming and DVDs available October 9th. All tickets and pre-orders at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. We got a great show tonight. Great ladies to comment on all that's going on. But first, let's start with some videos. Let's see what we got first today.
Acknowledging that we are going to experiment with our cities and use our cities as training grounds for warfare. So what that is saying is that the President of the United States wants to turn the U.S. military against the American people, and to tell law enforcement that they are now unleashed and they can use their guns is essentially saying, go in primarily inner city communities and shoot people.
Okay, that's Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles. Gosh, there's so many thoughts on that. First of all, she really needs to get a lot together. She let LA burn while she was on some sort of a vacation, if you've forgotten that already. What President Trump is trying to do, Mayor Bass, is ensure that those people, especially in those inner city communities, are not forgotten, and that they're not living in complete and total chaos, that they're not terrified to take their kids to the park down the street, that they can walk in their neighborhoods in safety, that they don't have to live in fear anymore. Go talk to the people who live in those exact neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. Why don't you ask them how they feel now that the law enforcement there is able to use their guns? They have seen an incredible decrease in crime, violent crime, carjackings, homicides in Washington, D.C. And guess what? The president wants to see that happen there as well. He also doesn't want to see our law enforcement agents, our ICE agents, who are out there trying to follow the law as it's written and mandated by the United States Congress, threatened. He doesn't want to see assaults that are up 1,000% continue on these ICE agents. So that's what it's all about. But of course, you have these people out there who have no idea what they're talking about, like Karen Bass. Don't forget, this is a woman when President Trump went out to LA and wanted to survey the damage out there after those horrific fires. This is at the very beginning of his term as president. During his second term, he said, let's let these people start rebuilding. And Karen Bass said, yeah, we could start that in about 12 months. And he said, 12 months? How about today? Start to get a clue. This is about safety and security, especially, Mayor Bass, for those communities. It's not about turning anybody in those communities, turning the law enforcement on them unless they're doing something wrong. And then guess what? The people who live there probably don't want them there anyway. All right, let's see what we got next. Oh, this will be a good one.
It's not only happening to Democrats, it's happening to everyone. And when the Medicaid cuts go in, old people are going to start to die. To die. What he's done yet hasn't even hit us yet. Right. And if he's not stopped now, we have lost our country. And I don't know, Nicole, how it is that some people cannot see it. My therapist said, why are you so upset? And I said to her, why are you not?
Yeah.
First of all, Nicole Wallace didn't even know what to say to that. Oh, her therapist. Didn't she move out of the country, Rosie O'Donnell? Couldn't she not handle it here? So our country. Didn't you leave here, Rosie? That's what I remember. Look, part of the whole point of Doge was to go in and make sure that there was no fraud, waste, and abuse within Medicare and Medicaid, because there are so many fraudulent claims and there is so much money that could go to actual people who need it, who don't get it, people who are ripping off the system and they know they can do it because they've been doing it for so long. No old people are going to die, Rosie. Get over yourself. Come on. These people know that's not true. This is the same kind of line of BS, quite frankly, that you heard from these exact same people when Donald Trump was running for president about a year ago. Remember when they said Donald Trump is going to put people who are gay and lesbian in internment camps? If you're in an interracial marriage, he's going to put you in internment camps. Are you kidding me? And you guys are going to believe this? Nobody believes that because they all know it's garbage, Rosie. It's sad, though, because these people continue to spew this just lie after lie out there. And I guess some people watch that. I don't know. God, shame on you, though. No old people are going to die. We're trying to get them more money. We're trying to protect the people who need it, Rosie. Oh, God. All right, let's see what else.
And so the idea that this is a white nation that needs to be preserved is a fascinatingly disgusting view, because this country is one for the many.
Who told Ilhan Omar that this is about preserving a white country? Where on earth is she getting this information? You know what? They call us a melting pot for a reason. We're a country of immigrants, legal immigrants. We're a country of people from all over the world. I don't know what these people are talking about, but they continue to just spew this in their echo chambers, this kind of nonsense, and try to make it's always got to be about race. We're trying to do the right thing and preserve America for every single American, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, regardless where you live in the United States. We want this country to be great for you. So I don't know what that whole thing is about, but this is just more of the same. These people don't know what to say, I guess, about a president who's been so successful, who has settled 7 conflicts around the world, on the verge of the 8th, the conflict that's been going on for thousands of years in the Middle East, essentially. I guess they don't know what to say whenever he actually does what the majority of people who voted for him wanted. So one of the main reasons people came and voted for Donald Trump in 2024 was to close down the border, secure our border, keep our country safe, get the bad guys out of here. He's doing that every single day. By the way, GDP is up 3.8%. The inflation rate is down. Cost of things are down. This is all a big part of what people wanted to see happen when Donald Trump came into office. So I guess these people don't know what to say whenever he's doing the things he said he would do. The country's headed back in a direction that means that Americans have a better life, a better quality of life, better aspirations for the future. They just come up with nonsense like this. That's the only thing I can imagine. Okay, here we go. Last one. Can't wait.
Here's the other thing that is quite unprecedented. And it was the tightest, closest presidential election in the 21st century. He does not have a mandate. That is not a mandate. That is not a mandate.
Okay. All right, Kamala. Bless her heart, as we say in my home state of North Carolina. I don't know who forgot to tell her, but there was nothing close about the 2024 election. Donald Trump won all 7 swing states, every one of them. He won the Electoral College vote. He won the popular vote for the first time in 20 years as a Republican. There was nothing close about this race. In fact, every state in the country got a little more red. Every state, even California, moved to the right to a certain degree. So by every possible quantifiable metric, Kamala Harris, things actually moved in the opposite direction for you and your party. And there was nothing that was even close. That's why it was such an epic win. Because it wasn't like, oh, we just squeaked by with enough electoral votes to get Donald Trump, in office. It was a freaking blowout. So I don't know what they're putting in her coffee, although I think we have some idea. Somebody gave her some bad information. And maybe instead of listening to whoever's blowing smoke, she needs to go look up the real stuff. But again, bless her little heart. Tonight we're joined by Daily Caller's Mary Rooke, as well as host of Underreported Stories with Chrissy Clark. Chrissy Clark. Ladies, welcome back to the show. It's kind of unbelievable, but today is October 7th, which means it is the 2-year anniversary of the attack in Israel. And it's sort of crazy to think That was 2 years ago that it happened. All of the things, Mary, that have taken place since, the sort of lack of response from the president at the time, Joe Biden, and maybe we should put president in air quotes because I don't really even know what was going on around then. We have the auto pen as his photo at the White House now on the Walk of Presidents there. But there are 48 hostages apparently that remain. And last Friday, after President Trump put forward this peace plan with Prime Minister Netanyahu, this plan has been worked on by my brother-in-law, Jared Kushner, by Steve Witkoff, who's the special envoy to the Middle East and Russia. Hamas came forward in some capacity last Friday, Mary, and said, listen, we're willing to at least release the hostages. And I think that this is really incredible to see movement of some capacity 2 years right, after this started. Obviously, it's taken a different president. Obviously, it's taken kind of leveling the playing field around the world and reestablishing America as the superpower of the world once again. But I mean, just give me your response to the fact that we could see, and I thought it was really interesting to hear my father-in-law say this, that this could be a solution to something that has been going on in the Middle East for thousands of years, Mary.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's pretty devastating that this war has continued for as long as it has. We've seen the toll on both sides, and as someone who is extremely pro-life, I don't like to see the death and destruction that's happening over there. As far as peace in the Middle East, I think that we kind of saw that under Trump and under his first term, and so it makes it's no shock to me that he's going to be working towards that end. I hope it comes soon. I don't trust terrorists, so I don't trust them to keep their word. And but if we can see hostages come home, I know that the families would be so grateful, even if they passed away under Hamas's terrorism. I think just having their bodies and being able to bury them and go through the proper mourning process is going to cause a lot of people to have some closure that they wouldn't normally have. And the other thing is that I think it's really interesting whenever you talk about what's going on in Israel and, Palestine, where you're looking at this war continue to rage on. And yet it's become such a big part of U.S. politics, even though we're not directly involved in it. I mean, you're seeing Mamdani go to not only a Jewish service, but then he's meeting with supposed Hamas sympathizers in New York, within 24 hours of each other. So it's very interesting how it's taken over, the political dynamics, not just the US, but in the UK and France and all these other places. It's
really wild. I mean, Mamdani's another, that's a completely different level. I don't know how you do both of those things, by the way. I don't know how you simultaneously, Chrissy, do both of them. I think you have to pick a bit of a side here. But I will say this. I will say that I don't think you would see any of what we're even talking about happen if it were any other president. I think that what you're hearing is that, the details are being held kind of close. We know it's a 21 point plan, something of that nature. But the statement by Hamas to basically hand over the 20 Israeli hostages that it still holds in exchange for graduated Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, and to hand over the administration of the Gaza Strip to a Palestinian body of independence. The fact that at least they say, maybe we could vibe with that, I think is incredible. And President Trump said apparently he was texting with, of all people, Jake Tapper, who he told that if Hamas failed to comply, that it would be, quote, complete obliteration. So I think it's taken this is more of the peace through strength approach, right? And you have, as one of the architects of this whole peace plan, this 20-point plan, Jared Kushner, my brother-in-law, who I mentioned a moment ago, who was also, heavily responsible for the Abraham Accords, which were such a huge success during the president's first term in office. I don't know that you would have Hamas come to the table, though, Chrissy, again, for any other president than Donald J. Trump.
No, this is an incredible feat because Hamas, yes, a bunch of barbaric terrorists who are going to get a bunch of barbaric terrorists out of prisons in Israel and sent back to the Gaza Strip in exchange for these surviving captives that have been taken captive since October 7th of 2023, nearly over 2 years now at this point. You know, I wouldn't necessarily say like they're negotiating in good faith. They're negotiating to get their terrorists back.
Right.
That's exactly what they're doing. But I don't think that otherwise this would be possible without Donald Trump. And yes, without a real threat. I think they understand that Bibi Netanyahu would have no problem carpet bombing all of Gaza if it weren't for the political prowess that came, or the problems that would come with that, and Israel being viewed as even a worse character on the international stage than it already is being portrayed as. But unfortunately, fortunately, I guess I should say, I don't think that Hamas takes it as seriously when it's Bibi, when it's Trump. People are very afraid of Trump. And for good reasons, justifiably so.
Yeah, I mean, look what he did in Iran whenever they didn't get rid of, their nuclear arsenal, their nuclear program that they were developing, and they shouldn't have been. He was like, all right, you guys want to mess around, for a nicer word, and find out. You're going to find out. We went in there and obliterated it, and he's promising the same thing to Hamas. I mean, quite frankly, nobody wants to get involved in a war. Donald Trump has settled 7 conflicts around the world since he's been back in office. That's amazing, by the way. Some of those conflicts lasted for days. Some of them have been lasting for decades. This one in particular, I mean, to talk about quote unquote peace in the Middle East, we're talking about thousands and thousands of years that this stuff has been going on, and nobody thinks it's going to be perfect, but at least we're taking a step in the right direction. At least to some extent, Hamas has said, okay, we're willing to talk about this. They're never going to get another opportunity like this. They're never going to get another chance for a president, any president, let alone President Trump, to say, okay, here's your chance to do the right thing. And then, look, we have to figure out what happens on the other side of this. Again, America, I don't think, wants to get involved in overseeing anything anywhere. We've seen that has gone awry many times. But we do want to set the people there in Gaza up for success, because you have the quote unquote hostages that Hamas has held, the people that were taken, of course, on October 7th of 2023. But I would argue that a lot of people who make their lives there in Gaza are hostages of Hamas themselves. They can't live a fulfilling life, and they can't live a free life when you have terrorists who are essentially running your community and your society. And so we got to figure out some way for things to happen on the other side of that. But look, the big thing is, let's get the hostages home. Let's get them returned. All of them alive. I hope they stay alive until they're returned. And then hopefully the people can obviously have a moment of peace whenever they get the bodies back of their loved ones. And then let's call a truce here. Let's just end this and let's move forward. And it is peace through strength. I do think if he's able to do this one, if he doesn't, get the Nobel Peace Prize on the other side of this thing. I mean, I don't even know. Although I kind of wonder, does he even want it? I actually saw my father-in-law yesterday, and we were talking about this. And he's kind of like, you know what? These people hate me. I don't know if it even matters. What do you think, Mary? I mean, first of all, do you think Donald Trump would get the Nobel Peace Prize if he's able to bring an end to this conflict? And number 2, does it even matter anymore, which is a sad thing to say?
I think a lot of these awards don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
I think, they used to have this prestige, and then they gave it to Obama, and then you kind of started rolling your eyes after that. And what did Obama do really to bring peace anywhere or deserve the award? And so I think when they snubbed him in his first administration after everything that he did, the fact that they would try and give it to him now would literally just be a capitulation to the populist movement that's growing around the world. I don't think that it means anything. And I think that he should just keep his head down, keep doing what he's doing, and not worry about the accolades from some globalist regime.
Yeah, well, he's definitely going to keep doing what he's doing. There's no doubt about it. And we love him for it. And I just mentioned sort of at the top of the show the auto pen photo that exists for Joe Biden and the walk of presidents there. Is that what we call it now, Chrissy? Is that what they're calling it? Let me tell you something. Donald Trump's touch is everywhere in this White House. There's now a giant gold mirror at the end of the presidents of their pictures. And then now above them as well, there's all the same kind of gilding and stuff that exists inside the Oval Office. I think it's fantastic. I love it for him. I love that he's enjoying himself, and he's like, yeah, let's put presidents out there. Let's line the whole thing. And for Joe Biden, let's put an auto pin. It doesn't get any better than that for me. The fact that he's getting stuff done and he's trolling the Democrats at every possible turn. And right now, obviously, Chrissy, we're in the midst of a government shutdown. We're entering week 2 of that. The Republicans are trying to pass a clean CR, but the Democrats don't want to do it because it doesn't contain the provisions they want for extending Obamacare subsidies. It just seems like it's all about politics and show for the Democrats. They have no interest in what's actually best for this country. They don't care. They think that somehow this is maybe going to help them in the midterms, Chrissy, that they can say, yeah, we put our foot down and we told Donald Trump we're not going to stand for anything unless illegal immigrants are getting health care. The whole thing, I think, is a little crazy. But look, Donald Trump was president during the longest shutdown ever experienced, which went on for 35 days. That was during his first term. So if they want to play a game of chicken with Republicans, I think this is finally a group that has a backbone and is going to do the right thing for the future of the country, Chrissy.
Yeah, I did a video that I put out on Instagram and TikTok just explaining why while Republicans have the majority, they can't actually pass a clean resolution with just a simple majority because the Democrats have invoked a filibuster. And you and I and Mary and probably a lot of the viewers at home, we kind of have a general understanding of why this is true, why this is the Democrat shutdown. But there are thousands of people that don't, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that don't. And that video went so viral. It's one of my best performing videos of all time because 2.6 million views in just a couple of days. That's amazing. Absolutely bonkers because people just want to understand what is going on. So if you don't understand, if you're at home trying to figure this out, please go watch that video. But also, it's incredibly...
explain it to people, Chrissy, because you're right. People say, I see the comments out there under all of these articles that I read all the time, because I always go down to the comments. I'm like, let me see what these people are saying. Unless the article is about me, then you do not, under any circumstances, read any comments. But under all of these articles, I see people saying the Republicans have the House, the Republicans have the Senate and the White House. They're the ones keeping it shut down. Chrissy, go. Why is that not the case? Please explain it to people.
Yeah, it's a really simple talking point, and it would be really confusing. So when you go to pass a bill or a continuing resolution, which we'll just call a CR for short, which is the budget that Congress is trying to pass that would fund the government from now until November 21st, if Congress were to just pass that, it should just take 51 votes. Okay, well, let's do simple math. We have 53 Republicans, 2 are a definite no, and we have 1 yes from the Democrats. So we have 51. That should work, right? Like, we should be able to pass that. No, when Democrats invoked a filibuster, which is a discussion that ends up happening in the Senate, in order to end the filibuster and vote on the bill, you must get 60 votes. And that cannot happen. I don't know if math is everyone's foray. It's not mine. But I do understand that 51 and 60 are completely different numbers. And in order to move on and this bill, this continuing resolution, to pass in the Senate, it needs 60 votes, not 51. Republicans don't have that. So it would require at least 9 other Democrats to get on board. We know Rand Paul's not going to get on board. Lisa Murkowski is like a hit or miss. She's a Republican senator. But yeah, that pretty much sums up how and why Republicans can't do this alone.
Thank you for breaking it down for people. And the truth is, Chuck Schumer has told all of the Democrats in the Senate, Mary, do not under any circumstances vote for this. Now, we know there's some who will break ranks, like John Fetterman, who, again, I continue to shout out John Fetterman. Seems like the most reasonable of the Democrats, which is outrageous considering, back in when he was running for Senate in Pennsylvania, like how crazy we all thought he was. He's so reasonable now. But Chuck Schumer, this is why we call it the Schumer shutdown, right? He's told everybody and the Democrat Party, do not under any circumstances vote for this no matter what, right, Mary?
Yeah, and I think the crazy thing about this is that the longer this goes on, the worse the polling is for Democrats, because there are millions of Americans that work for the federal government in some capacity, including our U.S. military members, that I think a lot of people forget that they do not get paid during these shutdowns. That's right. And I was listening to Mike Johnson talked to Vince Colonnese yesterday, and he was saying that he knows, like, just in his own district, that there are deployed members of the U.S. military that are not getting paid right now while their wives are at home with their kids. And that is such an important talking point to push on, because whenever you start talking to regular everyday Americans, especially not single mothers, but stay-at-home moms who live on one income, they can start visualizing what it would be like if all of a sudden their husband had to go to work and not get paid for the work that he was doing. And so I think that the Republicans, the messaging has been good so far, but it needs to be hit harder at the fact that they're not just stopping because, they want to do better in their district or whatever it is. They're stopping it for illegal immigrants to be able to get health care, and then to force hardworking Americans not to get the pay they deserve. And that is so important for Americans to understand. I think that, Chuck Schumer, the way that Trump has been trolling him with the sombrero hats, him and Hakeem Jeffries, I die every single time I see one of those videos. And then someone came out and said something like, I think it was on CNN, and they said something like, it doesn't seem to be registering with Republicans. There's no real blowback despite how many times we talk about it. And it's yes, because Americans think this is hilarious. They are no longer playing your identity politics games. Trump is funny. Get over it.
It's so good. By the way, I absolutely loved the photos of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the White House and in the Oval Office with the Trump 2028 in giant letters, the red hat on the Resolute desk. And they walked in and they were just like, oh, God. But what are they going to do, Chrissy? They're not going to do anything about it because they are losers. None of them have the imagination and the creativity of Donald Trump. None of them have the humor of Donald Trump. They could have had some kind of a comeback or a moment there, but they all freeze up and they clam up because they're phonies. And that's just what it is. And Donald Trump, for whatever it is you want to say about him, he's authentic to the core, and nothing makes me happier than those photos. It was so savage and so next level with the Trump 2028 hats. Oh, loved it, Chrissy.
I loved it too. And, I think that going back to the polling aspect of this, the reason why President Trump did numbers and grew margins in the Hispanic communities and Black communities in America, and that's what I think pushed him really over the edge and helped him to win in 2024, is because Black people and Hispanic people understand that it's not racist. It's a joke. It's funny, and you have to be actually slightly autistic and maybe a little retarded to actually think that what's happening here is racist. It's not racist. It's a frickin' joke.
It's so funny. But by the way, Mary, I'm glad you brought up the fact that our military personnel, there's so many people out there who are paid by the federal government. They're not going to get a paycheck. The shutdown, they're hoping it ends by October 15th because that's the first day, Republicans are hoping this, it's the first day that active duty military personnel will actually go without their paychecks. Most federal workers are going to miss their first paycheck by this Friday if something isn't resolved. So, we're talking about the TSA. We're talking, you think about how all-encompassing the federal government is, and it's a huge swath of our country. But the numbers you guys keep bringing up, I think, is exactly right. Somebody asked, I think it was yesterday, I saw somebody ask Chuck Schumer, they said, listen, only 48% of Democrats polled believe that you guys are doing the right thing by keeping the government shut down. They don't even, the majority of your party doesn't even agree with it. What do you say to that? And he was just like, oh, we got to go. They can't say anything because they know what they're doing isn't landing with the people that they think it should land with. They're, as far as I'm concerned, they're playing to the far left radicals in their party. They continue to do that. Those are the only people who want to see illegal immigrants get free health care. And let me just say that this is a statement by one of the spokespeople from the White House. She said the Trump administration wants a straightforward, clean CR, continuing resolution, to continue funding the government. The exact same proposal that Democrats supported just 6 months ago, 13 times under the Biden administration. But radical Democrats are shutting the government down because they want a nearly $1.5 trillion wish list of demands, including free health care for illegal aliens. The Democrats' radical agenda was rejected by the American people less than a year ago at the ballot box, and now they're shutting down the government and holding the American people hostage for it. Here's my thing, Chrissy. We have a roughly $37 trillion national debt. You wonder why it's so hard to dig out from something like that. It's because of this kind of crap. These people want to just dump money down the drain as quickly as they possibly can. We're willing to just frivolously throw this money away. We're never going to get on top of this national debt with an attitude like this, like these people have. Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit LaraLikesGold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings with gold and silver the way I do. That's LaraLikesGold.com. Well, Dinesh D'Souza has done it again. His new eye-opening movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, illuminates a 3,000-year-old mystery about Israel, the dark resurrection, and the end of days. The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation, but what if there was going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy of Israel? After the horrific attack on October 7th, The Dragon's Prophecy offers new understanding on Israel, radical Islam, anti-Semitism, and biblical prophecy. Could it be that the fate of the world, of all of humanity itself, is tied to what we're seeing happen in the Middle East? Based on the #1 international bestseller by Jonathan Cahn, The Dragon's Prophecy reveals how another realm could be transforming our world as we speak. Don't miss Dinesh D'Souza's new movie, The Dragon's Prophecy, in theaters 2 nights only, October 6th and 8th. Streaming and DVDs available October 9th. All tickets and pre-orders at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. That's thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
In the most logical way possible, the Democrats lost the election. Pretty much everything that they want is rolling back Trump's one big beautiful bill. You lost the election. You don't just get to come in and 9 of you that are holding this entire process hostage say, well, I know we lost. I know the American people want something different, but I don't want something different. So we're going to hold all of your paychecks hostage, and we're going to make this miserable for everybody else until we get what we want, which is not the mandate the American people had on the country. To me, it's the most illogical thing in the world. You lost the election. You don't just get to come in and say, oh, I want you to roll back your entire signature bill. But no, yes. You don't have the power to do that.
Not just that, but how do they expect to get any of these people who are in the middle back to them if they're going to continue to push this radical left agenda? Like how, in what reality do they think this is politically smart for them to be acting this way, going to like the very far left of their party and like searching for ideas to do when the middle of America voted for Trump because of their radical agenda?
Exactly, Mary. But this is the thing. They don't have anything else to offer. They have absolutely nothing. They are just kind of like floating around in the ether. They don't know who they are, and they don't know what to say to the American people. So they made some sort of a political calculation. I believe, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, I assume Nancy Pelosi was part of it. She doesn't want AOC to have any part of this, that's for sure. She's very worked up over that. But they made a political calculation, and they were like, all right, what is it that what's our big push as we go to the midterms? What is it we're offering America? And the truth is it's nothing. And so somebody was like, let's just try this and let's see what happens. And now it's backfiring on them. By the way, you talk about the one big beautiful bill, Chrissy. Here's a little bit more from Caroline Levitt. She said, what did the Democrats want in their continuing resolution? They inserted a provision to undo a provision in the working families tax cut, the one big beautiful bill that ended taxpayer-funded health care benefits for illegal aliens. Democrats' proposals would require Medicaid to pay more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than Medicaid does for American patients who are disabled, elderly, or children. And this bill would have also allowed California to continue a gimmick that funds its Medicaid for illegals program. So anytime you hear Democrats out there saying like, oh, the Republicans are making that up. No, this is exactly why, or this is their rationale for why they can't vote for the clean CR. This is why they're holding our country hostage. So it's right there. It's very easy. Although they're going to do their tap dance, it doesn't seem like it's working because the numbers continue to go in the wrong direction. Before I know there's so much crazy out there, but I want to get to our students because I feel like so much of what we talk about is like in the immediate right now and happening right now. But I'm continuing to think about what happens in the future for America, and so is President Trump. It's one of the reasons he wants to dismantle the Department of Education. If you look at scores, at data of test scores, this is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. Reading scores for 12th graders, this was recently published last month. Reading scores for 12th graders are the worst that have been recorded, Chrissy, since 1992. Okay, things are moving in such a bad way that apparently a third of high school seniors basically can't read prose text at all, meaning this is like a standard grammatical sentence in a paragraph form. They can't read it and then understand what they read and answer questions from that passage of text on the other side. 1/3 of high school seniors, Chrissy. That's terrifying to me. Yeah. And it's one of the reasons we have got to give parents choice in where they're sending their kids to school. It's one of the big things President Trump campaigned on. It's something that Linda McMahon is focused on. And my gosh, we knew it was bad, but to get this information, these are the worst test scores we've seen since 1992.
I consider myself kind of like the Antifa of public schools. I just want to blow all of it. Not the physical buildings. That's not what I'm not advocating for that. But like, I just think the system is so corrupt beyond repair that I don't think that there's quite, we don't have a strategy laid out to bring them back. But, you know, there was one story that you saw out that was particularly heartbreaking in that so many kids are just, we're actually kind of becoming a dumber society. Like IQs are dropping rapidly. Kids are not interested in learning. And part of that is that people feel, and specifically kids in K through 12 school, feel like they're not actually learning the core essentials. And that's why people are so far away from wanting to be involved in public schools, right? We're not learning about math. We're not learning about reading. We're not learning about writing. We're learning about the colonization of America and the problems that have, you know, come and stemmed from that. And while that might be an important topic to, you know, branch off of if you're studying that specific topic in college, it has no true bearing on understanding reading, writing, and math. And I think that we've brought these really heavy, hard-handed subjects that were just not intended to be a part of our K through 12 curriculum into every aspect of it. And so kids are no longer just like, oh, I don't want to do my math homework. They're like, I don't want to have to do my math homework, and I don't have to deal with the emotional and cognitive toll that it takes to think about how I'm a bad person for 2 + 2 = 4. I think that a lot of the reason why we see kids getting dumber is because they're not designed by God to have that emotional or cognitive toll on themselves every single day, being told that they're less than because of where they live, or they're oppressive, or they're oppressed. I think it's a complete botched mess that the public school system has left our kids in.
I couldn't agree more, Mary. Whenever adults were asked why Americans think that K through 12 public education is going in the wrong direction, to Chrissy's point, 69% of them say schools are not spending enough time on core academic subjects like reading, math, science, and social studies. 54% say teachers bringing their personal, political, and social views into the classroom. And then the 52% say schools not having the funding or resources that they need. And I agree with that. Look, to me, if we are not preparing our students right now to be out on their own, to live in the world, to be able to handle, I think that they should give a class on like what a home mortgage is and how you, you know, a balance. I mean, I use the word checkbook. I still write checks. You know what I mean? Like, we need basics. People don't understand how to do basic things, like a basic economic course, to say like, okay, when you graduate from high school, if you go to college, whatever, when you get out in the real world, here's how you need to divvy up your finances so that you can make it. We just don't teach kids any of that. And I remember coming out of school, even way back in the dark ages when I did, and I was like, wait a minute, nobody taught me this. I had to have my parents teach me basics of economics, way back when.
And so then what happens when the parents who are children now, but then grow up to have their own children, can't teach their children financial literacy? It's, it's a snowball effect that just gets worse and worse after every generation. I watched this video the other day where this girl was like crying and she goes, I may sound dumb by doing this, but like I was using my Apple Pay and I need y'all to understand that like that's not like free rewards you get from using your Apple phone. Like what you're actually doing is it's connected to your debit card or your credit card and you're spending your own money. And I racked up like $30,000 in debt by like charging these things which I thought were like free rewards from using my iPhone. And I'm sitting here like, how can you be that dumb? Like, how can you not know that simple reality? But the basis of it is that we're demoralizing our students. Just like Chrissy said, they don't want to learn anything. They just want to get out of class. They want to stop being told they're racist because of the color of their skin, or, not an ally because they don't identify with whatever alphabet the teacher is identifying with that day. And it's so sad. And when you look at the numbers all around the country, I mean, like Chicago, for example, the Chicago's teacher union came out and she was like demonizing ICE and calling them troopers and all these things. And then when you look at the scores for Chicago, it's like 1 in 3 students can read and do math at grade level. That's what they're focused on. They're focused on these identity politics, the social stuff, rather than actually educating our children. And you know who's watching this? People like Russia, people like China.
100%.
They're watching us get dumber and dumber every single year. And they're thinking, okay, if we just wait a decade, they'll be ripe for the picking because no one will be able to understand their own historical texts anyways.
I'm also a big proponent of teaching kids cursive. I think
big time. All my kids write in cursive.
Okay, see, I love that. But I mean, mine are 6 and 8, so they kind of just are. We're still cleaning up the handwriting a little. We just sort of got into this. But a lot of schools don't teach cursive anymore. It's just kind of like fallen by the wayside, Chrissy, and we're supposed to just kind of like not worry about it. My thing is that, and I've heard other people say this, like our founding documents are written in, guess what, cursive. If we have an entire society of kids coming up who can't read cursive, at what point do we just say like they're not actually able to reference the direct text and understand what our founding documents even say at some point? So I actually don't know whether or not my kids' schools teach cursive. I'm about to find out, and if they don't, I better believe I'm going to be petitioning for it, or maybe I'll host a class all on my own where we're going to learn how to do cursive with Lara Trump. I don't know, but I think that kind of stuff is important as well. It's sort of like the classic education that has just sort of disappeared, Chrissy.
Yeah, I think that's a trend in our culture, though, right now. It's not even just in education, but writ large, we've put knowledge as priority above wisdom. And so now we see all these young people, they just don't really care about being wisdom oriented, about having the classical literature taught to them, about being able to understand founding documents. They just want to get the knowledge that they can get off of ChatGPT and Google. And trust me, I'm guilty of this myself. I shouldn't talk down to other people. Totally guilty of this myself. I can be super knowledgeable, but I don't know how necessarily wise our culture is. And I think that's what people, not to invoke his name at such a sad time, but I really think that's what Charlie Kirk was fighting for, was putting wisdom and older people and generational figures at the forefront of our movements, as opposed to just loudmouth influencers with a lot of knowledge. And I'll point to myself on that.
Well, I listen, I think it's all important. And I think if you want yet another reason to be afraid of the fact that you probably are going to have this communist socialist Mamdani as mayor of New York City. He wants to get rid of the gifted and talented learning programs in New York City. This is a program they essentially identify students through a testing process, and if you kind of test in this gifted category, then you get accelerated classwork, and you obviously are bumped up and you are pushed so that you can achieve more, right? The parents who support the program say that it offers a crucial opportunity for high-achieving students that cannot be replicated in general education classrooms. But Mary, I look at this and I'm like, well, of course this guy wants to get rid of anything that is outside of the standard. That's communist. Like, you know, anything that puts one person over another, regardless if they worked hard for it, regardless if they earned it, you can't have that in this kind of like communist socialist society. So yeah, he wants to get rid of that in New York City. My God, New York City public schools must be already hurting so badly, and then this guy's just going to come in and just rug right out from under them.
Yeah, it's actually kind of wild because if you think about who gets hurt worst by communism and socialism, like their policies, it's always the poor. They sell it to the poor as this way to like climb up the ladder and all of that stuff. But in reality, it's hurting them so badly. And this is just one example out of many, because what's going to end up happening is that you're going to have kids who couldn't otherwise afford private school in New York City, who could have gotten into the gifted and talented program and done something remarkable with their lives because they're getting the education to be able to teach them that. But what he's doing is he's saying, your future means nothing. Your parents can't afford to send you into a private education in order to better your life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you the same as all the kids around you who are struggling education-wise and financially. And this is the lot in which you were born into, and this is the lot in which you stay. And I think that it's again, like another reason why they're like, you know, demoralizing our students. And New York City has to be so sad about this. But again, when you look at the people that vote for Mamdani, they aren't the people that are sending their kid into inner city public schools. They're the kids that are going to the Upper West Side. They're going to these fancy private schools that are extremely hard to get into. They're the kids that aren't going to suffer. You know, their families are going to be okay during this because they're always going to accumulate wealth, whereas the people who are going to be hurt by it are just going to be sitting back in breadlines and not learning how to, you know, read and write.
God, it's scary stuff, Chrissy. I'll tell you what, not that we needed another reason to dislike this guy, but this is just another example, you know, of what happens. It is very, you know, socialist in its essence, and it's bad for, it turns out, everybody. Just to give us a moment of positive at the end of the show, I'm looking very closely at this New Jersey gubernatorial race, right? You saw the shift with nearly every single state in the 2024 presidential election got a little more red. Every state in the country, including states like Virginia, including states like New Jersey, where we had some of the closest margins that we have had in my lifetime, in terms of a Republican possibly winning those states for the president's race. So there is a big campaign and a big push to make sure that we flip New Jersey red, Chrissy. And I feel like this is such a big thing. If we can do this, if we can get a Republican as governor of a state like New Jersey, I think it would be great. Jack Ciattarelli, I got a chance to interview him. Great guy. He ran previously, but the guy he was running against was an incumbent. It was a very tough race. And now he's sort of head-to-head, and his opponent has said some really crazy things. She's got a lot of scandals of her own. But one of the things they're doing out there is there's a group that was inspired, by the way, Chrissy, by, you brought him up a minute ago, Charlie Kirk, who is saying, you know what, we're not going to just take this lying down. They are saying they're going to knock on more than 510,000 doors. They did in Pennsylvania and during the presidential election, and it actually made a huge difference. They're going to do the same thing in New Jersey, and they're chasing the ballot. And what that means is, you've heard of you've heard of how we don't like mail-in voting, but the reality is we kind of have it as it is, and we have to deal with things as we have them. And you hear the way that Democrats go out and they kind of stuff the ballots and they gather things illegally and they do things that they shouldn't. Well, you can go door to door and you can chase these ballots. You can remind people, Chrissy, that it's time to turn in your ballot. You can put it in your mailbox right now. We don't do anything with it, but you can do it. You can go vote right now today. So they're going out there, and they have so far, the New Jersey Chase team knocked on 284,565 doors, encouraging Republicans to request, complete, and return return their mail-in ballots. I think, Chrissy, we're going to see something happen in New Jersey. I got to say it right now. I think that people are ripe for change. They've seen the positive shift in this country under this president. I think a lot of people in New Jersey are probably sick of the nonsense. And look, it's all about showing up, right? If people showed up for these sort of one-off elections like we do during a presidential election, Chrissy, I think Jack Ciattarelli has it in the bag. But I give a lot of credit to this New Jersey Chase team who's out there making sure that people are returning their mail-in ballots. This could be the difference in this race.
It's always confused me why Republicans haven't done this as long as Democrats have, because the ground game for Democrats, I remember being in college and getting so many knocks. This was 2019, so right before the 2020 election, getting so many door knocks about, actually, I guess it was midterm elections. It was when I was living in Michigan, so Gretchen Whitmer was getting elected as governor of Michigan. And it was a whole big thing, and every single door knocker, not a single one was Republican. And it always befuddled me because it was in a massive college town with 60,000 students alone. They're not all Democrats, it was weird to me. And so to see that the Republicans have upped their ground game since 2018, to see what we see now, which would hopefully be flipping an entire state red, that would be unreal. And let me just say, I don't want to speak out of turn when I say this, but that would be the legacy of Charlie Kirk, because a lot of people see Turning Point for the glitz and the glam, but as someone that worked there as, in their field program and then in their contributorship program, they are all about grit. They are so about getting on the ground, helping people on the action side win elections. It is incredibly impressive, and that's the legacy that Charlie left for us, and it would be amazing to see that fulfilled within only a couple months of his tragic passing.
I remember talking to Charlie about this for the 2024 election. You're exactly right, Chrissy. It's boots on the ground. It's people actually getting out there and doing the work. And this ballot chasing initiative, we did this all over the country, everywhere we possibly could, and Turning Point was a huge part of that in 2024. So to see people, look, obviously I'm not at the RNC anymore, but to see people continuing to do this and push for it, and a lot of people would have looked at New Jersey and said, not worth it, Mary. It's not worth our time or our energy to get involved in a state that's been traditionally blue. And we don't really know if anyone, we had Chrissy there, I guess, but people oftentimes just kind of decide to, whatever you want to say about that. I don't have a lot of nice things, so I'll keep my mouth shut. But people oftentimes just write it off, and they're like, we're not going to try, we're not going to put the effort in. I think people are putting the effort into this race, and I'm hopeful, Mary, that it pays off.
Yeah, you know what? It's very similar to what Chrissy was talking about, the college towns. A lot of Republicans wrote off college students for a very long time. And it was, the Charlie Kirks of the world who came in and said, it's not time to write off the young people. We can still reach them. There's still a voice that needs to be heard. And if we just tell them that we're going to give them a microphone to talk, we can probably bring them back into the movement. And boy, was he right about that. And I think that there are so many millions of Americans across the country, especially living in blue states, that are like, please give me a mic, let me speak. And so if we just tell them that their mic is their vote and that they can use it at any time that they want to, go out and use it, that I think that there's a chance. I was watching New Jersey as one of those states in the 2024 election.
I know.
Where I was thinking, okay, is it going to go red or is it going to stay blue? And, obviously, unfortunately, it stayed blue, but it, like you said, it went way red. And, what was really shocking to me is California did the same thing. It stayed blue, but it went way red in 2024, redder than it ever had before. And so I think that, that's the populace standing up and going, please don't forget about us. We are still here. And what did you say, 280,000 votes or doors that they've already knocked on, something like that?
Thus far.
That changes an election completely. That is, especially in a statewide election, that's the difference between winning and losing. And so good for them, honestly. The Pennsylvania Chase vote was so successful, and I hope that it's just the same in New Jersey.
Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. We're paying close attention. If you live in New Jersey, make sure you vote in this election. This is so important. We got to send a message. And you know what? I just think overall, Republicans and conservatives finally have found a backbone. They've gotten a backbone from President Trump. A lot of them got a backbone from Charlie Kirk, and people are saying, you know what? We're not just going to take this line down anymore. You have Benny Johnson, who's going out to California and working hard to make sure that voter ID is something that is permanent in the state of California. That's going to change a lot of the electoral map there in California. So it's good stuff. We got to keep fighting for everything. We can't take anything for granted. So Chrissy and Mary, as always, you guys are the best. Thank you for joining us today. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. We'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.
And I won't back down.